So can you see my screen? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to use the NCE book, the NCE Secrets today. Again, when it comes to the human development people, it doesn't really matter. They're all exactly the same. No matter where you read it, rules are rules are rules. So Erickson. So Erickson is psychosocial development. Psycho, because he was a little bit of Freudian, right? His little bit of unconscious piece there, as well as social, because he looked at how we developed socially. Okay, so because he was Freudian, I knew the first two stages, infancy versus trust or mistrust, and autonomy versus shame and doubt, are the same two stages as Freud. Freud's first stages are oral and anal, right? Oral is the same thing as trust versus mistrust. Anal is the same thing as autonomy versus shame and doubt. What I'm always thinking about is my little babies who are trying to be potty trained, right? Like I put on my big boy underwear, Mom, I'm so excited, my big boy underwear, and then I had an accident, right? Most often, that's what it looks like when I'm looking at those two stages. So when it comes to the stages, not only do I need to know what should happen, I need to know kind of what happens and what's the virtue. I don't always teach the virtues. I just kind of think that most often I can figure them out on the test. So like I said, those first two, Erickson is a bit Freudian. The psyche, so psychosocial, that psycho part is a bit unconscious. So Erickson is a bit Freudian. Yes. So that's where those first two stages line up with Freud's. So trust versus mistrust, that is my babies lying in the crib. And despite what your mom and them said, if they keep crying and crying and crying and you never come, they're going to grow up to think the world is not a good place, right? So I'm an infant and I felt I have no control over the world. Wait a minute, Mama never came. So, and the goal is, of course, is hope, that I hope the world's going to be a good place. If mother never picks me up, and again, I cry and cry and cry, I grew up mistrusting the world, according to Erickson. 18 months to 3, that's again, that's that potty training age, right? So I put on my big boy underwear, my Superman underwear, and I'm so excited, and I have an accident, right? That's autonomy versus shame and doubt. Okay, and of course, you know those terrible 2-year-olds, what they want is their will. I want it my way. 3 to 5, initiative versus guilt. Those are my kids that's the only time in life they really want to help you. They'll help you do the laundry, help you clean the dishes. And of course, they're mixing the clean dishes with the dirty dishes. They're making a mess everywhere. But hey, they want to help you. They're learning their purpose in life. That's 3 to 5. Now, 5 to 13, that is when I start elementary school. Okay. And so what I'm looking for in that age is knowing that what I'm good at, what is my purpose in life? So when you were little, when you were your own kids, you put them in every sport. You put them in karate and basketball and baseball and all those good things. You're trying to figure out their industry, what they're good at. So if you look back in school, do you remember the kid that couldn't read as well? Right? So let's hope his mother kept him in sports, because we all have to feel our purpose, our competency. We have to feel that someplace. I was the smartest speller. Yay! I could spell. Now, mind you, because we read like, Mary and Bob catches the ball. And my uncle's name was Jeff, and Jeff was in the books all the time at the time. So I could read Jeff. Hey. So that's what I was a speller. So that was my industry, what I was good at. And what happens, he said, in elementary school, if you don't find something you're good at, then you will always feel inferior. Okay. So again, if school was not your thing, let's hope that something else is, because we need kids not to grow up feeling inferior. So competency is one of the goals there. If you think of industry, I always think of what your town is known for. What is your town good at? That's your industry. Okay. So then 13 to 21, that's I'm looking at my identity. So at 13, right, we are starting high school, maybe, starting high school. So, you know, 9th grade, you call your girls up and like, oh my God, let's all wear pink nail polish tomorrow, right? Let's all dress alike. Oh, let's go get this shirt and dress. Well, it'd be so cool, right? Because you're at the beginning of that stage. All you want to do is be like everybody else, right? But by the time you're 21, surely you're not calling your girls up and ask what to wear. Okay. So hopefully, you know, if you show up at the party and you're wearing the same dress at 21, somebody better go home and change. Okay. So identity is who I am. I'm also learning my sexual orientation. Do I like boys? Do I like girls? Do I like tall boys, short boys, fat girls, skinny girls, blue girls, white girls, green girls? I'm a girl who likes girls. That is, sorry, hold on. That should develop in that stage. Okay. So then he said that I can't. Oh, sorry about guys, I've been teaching all day. He said, I cannot. So I have to be true to myself. So identity versus confusion. The goal is fidelity, being true to myself. So once I learn who I am and what my sexual orientation is, then I can fall in love with somebody. So between 21 and 39 is intimacy versus isolation. So the goal is to, he said that at some point in those years, you should have been in love with somebody. And not necessarily the same somebody, but you should have experienced intimacy. So if you're 40 and you never experienced any intimacy, and then you can't be in generativity. Generativity means that you've created children. You're leaving a legacy for your children or for your grandchildren or for other people's children. Generativity means to continue to generate and to make sure I'm leaving something behind for my kids or other future generations. The other term is stagnation. So if I don't continue to generate, keep going up, keep giving back, then I become stagnant. Okay, that's 40 to 65. That's the age I'm in. I'm 55. So I'm a tenured college professor. And if you don't know, that means that once you're tenured, you really just can't be fired. So I have lots of peers who have taught the same syllabus their whole life. I honestly had a colleague that was teaching the DSM-4. That was about a year ago. We've been on the DSM-5 for like 14 years. Just saying, okay? So that's what stagnation looks like. So there's no need to change the syllabus. They'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And so we don't want that. We just don't want that. We want to continue to leave a legacy, to go up. We don't want to stagnate. And again, generativity. So the goal of that one is caring. I'm trying to leave a legacy for my children, for grandchildren, for me in my business, right? I want to leave a legacy of people who are amazing counselors and social workers who can pass this test. So that really is kind of, that's where I'm at. And the last one, of course, is 65 or older. And I think we all know people who are on their deathbed or who have been on their deathbed and are in despair. They are looking back at all the things they could have, should have, would have done, right? That's despair. I should have spent more time with my family. I should have done this. I should have done that. So integrity is, sometimes we'll see ego integrity. Remember, because he's a little bit Freudian. So ego integrity versus despair. That's the last stage of the last stages of life. Ego integrity, I'm looking back on my life and thinking, wow, I did this, I did that, and I raised my kids, and they turned out okay, all that good stuff. And despair then is the end of the line. So despair is like, wow, it's too late. All things I could have done. And of course, that's wisdom. I kind of hope that I develop a little bit of wisdom before I'm dead. But that's just me. According to Erickson, that's what happened. I don't want to wait till I'm dead to gather some wisdom. Okay, Erickson. So then, let's go look at old Uncle Freud. Okay, Freud is known for psychosexual stages. Okay, he said that this is how we develop sexually. Okay, oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. OAPLG. Oral, Orphan Annie, Pretty Little Girl. I've heard that. Old ass people love gold. I've heard that one. Okay. So those are all of the ways to remember that. So oral, anal, and phallic, he said that sexual development happens in those 3 stages. Okay. So the oral, he said that what happens if your mother pulls the nipple, the bottle out of your mouth too soon, that you'll be fixated at that stage. You're always trying to satisfy that urge, right? Satisfy that need. It's unconscious, of course, but you're trying to satisfy that. Anal, if your mother potty trains you too soon, Then you're going to spend your whole life with a very tight sphincter muscle. Well, that's the muscle that allows you to hold your bowel movement. So if your mother, pulled you off the potty before you were ready, that your whole life you'd be like, holding in stuff, right? Because of the way your mother raised you. And then my phallic stage, of course, that is when I discover my genitalia. Like, oh yeah, I got this toy between my legs. Look at this, look at this. Okay, that's 3 to 5. So what he said then is during that stage of 3 to 5 is I am really looking at, give me that one. So 3 to 5, I'm looking at getting stuck in those stages. The Oedipus stage, that's the girl. The girl's in love with her father. The Electra, I'll try that again. Oedipus is the boy is in love with his mother. Electra, the girl, is in love with her father. So those are the stages that you're stuck in. He said in that stage, the boy was afraid his father would find out and cut off his penis. Okay. And the Electra stage, she didn't have penis. She wasn't afraid of that. She had penis envy. She wanted to have a penis like her dad. Okay. The latency stage, nothing happens in that stage. I always remember, and you might see latent someplace else. So latent is the opposite of manifest. So manifest is you're seeing it. Latent is it's hidden. Okay. So think if you're, I'm not old enough, but the Unabomber, a long time ago, Ted Kaczynski, anyway, if you don't look him up, if you don't know who he is, he wrote his manifest. He wrote out what he wanted to do. Okay. So that's manifest. You can see it. Latent, you cannot see it. So you might see latency in other parts of the test. You just cannot see it. And then, of course, genital stage is in whenever they're having sex. Okay, so whenever you begin to have sex, that's a phallic. That's the genital stage. Phallic is going to be masturbation. Okay, 3 to 5. Okay, OAPLG. Now, of course, Freud said everything was unconscious, right? The goal of a psychodynamic theorist was to bring things from the unconscious to the conscious. So then, my id, ego, and superego are all in the unconscious. My id is my pleasure principle. Right? Okay, that's Janet Jackson, if you don't recognize my amazing talents of singing. So my id is the devil. I want it now. I want it right now. And I don't want to wait for anything else. I'm born with my id, he said, right? My id are basic instincts. That's how the world has survived, according to Freud, is because we have that basic desire to eat, sleep, and procreate. Okay, society wouldn't go on if we didn't eat, sleep, and procreate. So my id wants it. It wants it now. It's unconscious and it's a basic instinct. Okay. Then, of course, my superego says no. My id says, Pam, oh my gosh, you're not married. You could just kind of sleep with everybody, right? I want. My superego says, girl, you are old. You better chill out. Right? No, Pam, no. So my ego says, hey, Pam, you know what? You could just get married. Right? So my id and my superego are always fighting. My id is my devil. He wants what he wants and he wants it now. The superego says, no, Pam, never. So my ego, that's my reality principle. That is me. Right? So if you see anything about ego strengths, ego syntonic, ego dystonic, that's what that means. My ego is me. That's the reality principle. Okay? So it is always fighting. It and superego are always fighting back and forth. And the ego is what rounds it out. Okay. Again, always unconscious. So again, in my unconscious, my id, born with my id, he said, my superego develops actually between 3 and, my superego develops between 3 and 5. And according to Freud, because that's when you've got that toy between your legs, right? You found that cute toy down there, like, oh my, this is amazing. That's when your superego develops, because superego is going to say, stop touching that. No. Right? Your id says, touch it. Ego, superego says, no. And then your ego, of course, is reality. And between 3 to 5, that means mom is going to come by and say, stop doing that. So my unconscious, everything is underneath. You see that? That's called a topography. All of my defense mechanisms, all those things are in my unconscious. My preconscious are things that I can recall if I really try. Okay. So, if you ask whoever your 3rd grade teacher was, or your favorite teacher in elementary school, or, your first phone number, For some of us, that was like many, many, many years ago. For some of you, it was like last week. But for me, it was a long time ago. I do remember it. Okay, so my preconscious are things that I can easily recall. We do not use the word subconscious. That is not a Freudian term. That is not correct. It's called preconscious. And then my conscious, of course, that's my everyday living, things that I can recall by myself. That's the conscious. So then, of course, you've got those defense mechanisms. There's just a few of them, but there's all those are unconscious except for one. The one that's not unconscious is suppression. Repression says that I don't remember it. So I'm in a therapy with a woman, and both her older sister and her younger sister were both sexually molested by her father, but she denies it happens, right? She's repressed it, odds are. Like she just doesn't recall that it happened. Suppression says, I remember, but I'm choosing not to deal with it, right? So a suppression may be like, wow, I'm aware that it happened, but I don't want to talk about it. So that's just between suppression and repression. Suppression is the only defense mechanism that is not unconscious. It is a choice, according to Freud. When you say denial, all of these are some form of denial. So for the test, most often that's going to be a drug or alcohol question. We know that denial is part of drug and alcohol abuse. So if you see denial, which is considered a primitive or primary defense mechanism, if the question is not about drugs or alcohol, look for something else, okay? Projection, of course, you are projecting your own stuff onto other people. So you're having an affair, and of course you think that your wife is having an affair. So projection, I always think, I'm in the back of the movie theater, and I'm projecting all of my unwanted thoughts and beliefs about me out for the world to see. So this involves the individual attributing their own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, and motives to another person. Okay. So the example, you might hate someone, but your superego tells you that your hatred is unacceptable. You can solve the problem by believing that they hate you. Displacement is the same feeling for feeling, right? I'm angry at the boss and I kick the dog, right? It's the same feeling. Okay, and regression, of course, going back to a childlike state. Sublimation, you'll see, sublimation is when I have a thought, a feeling, anything that's unacceptable for society, and I find a better way to share it. Okay. So those are my defense mechanisms, just a few of them, but again, all of those belong to Freud.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
About the 12 defense mechanisms. Are those, okay, that was my question. I wasn't sure all synonymous or related to Freud, or were they throughout all of them, but you answered it, so thank you.
Okay. They actually belong to Anna Freud, but the test's not going to ask you that. They just say Freud, but really his daughter came up with most of them. But the test won't ask you that. So. But you can tell your friends, did you know that Anna Freud came up with those defense mechanisms? I can tell you're displacing. You're not really angry at me. You're angry at somebody else. And did you know? So really, that's kind of how you make it part of your life. We all have defense mechanisms. If you see any of my other videos, my favorite one is intellectualization, right? So, the doctor tells me bad news, something about a medical issue, and instead of crying, getting upset, what do? Go to WebMD, right? I'm going to intellectualize instead of feeling. Okay, so those are Freud and his defense mechanisms, a few of them. Okay, the goal of psychoanalytic or psychodynamic therapy, psychodynamic is what we use now, it's a shorter version. Psychoanalytic was the longer version. The goal of that is to bring the unconscious to the conscious. Freud said that the problem is, Freud said the problem is that we all need those. They protect us, right? If I go off on like my boss at work, there's a problem with that, right? So he said that those protect us. So that's what we have them. They protect us from anxiety most often, what you're going to see on the test. Okay, so projection and displacement. Displacement is the same feeling. You'll see in the question, he's mad at his wife, he's mad at work, and he kicks the dog. Okay. My youngest at home, she'll always tell you, she's been around me. I've been in therapy, of being a therapist my whole life, and she'll say, Mom, you're displacing those feelings, because I'll be mad at one of the kids that doesn't live here. Right? And the one who lives here, it's so convenient just to take it out on her. That's displacement. Projection is projecting my own feelings onto somebody else. I feel this way about me, so you must feel this way also. Okay. Introjection is the opposite, it's bringing it in. So introjection is where I have a thought process, and instead of getting mad at everybody else, I'm bringing it in. So the boss comes in and he yells at everybody because we didn't finish the project, and I take it personally. I'm taking it in. Okay. So then this again, that's psychoanalytic, psychosexual, again, terms to look for. Psychodynamic is the shorter version. So you'll see all of those on the test. Psychoanalytic, psychosexual, that's a big key that it's Freud. Okay. Piaget is my cognitive development guy. He looked at how kids grow cognitively, how we, come up with these thought patterns, things like that. The words that belong to Piaget would be like schema, right? My schema, accommodation, all of those words that would belong to Piaget. So what he said is he looked at kids, how they develop cognitively. So again, that is how I learned to see the world. So SPCF, I've heard some people can fly. Okay. Sensory motor, preoperational, concrete, and formal. And what I'm looking for not only are the ages and stages, but what should I learn in those stages? So sensory motor, those are my babies up to 2, right? They are learning how to see the world. They're you'll get a copy of this book I'm using, Kim. Yes. Okay. So the sensory motor stage is birth to 2, and we learn to see the world by touching, all of our 5 senses, right? Walking, feeling, smelling, touching. When my kid was little, we're at the mall, and I looked down, he had a cigarette butt in his mouth. Like, oh my gosh, right? How nasty can that be? But that's how kids do. They put everything in their mouth, right? When they were little, their dad would say, "Does that say touch me?" Right? Because that's how kids learn. So the goal of the sensory motor stage is to develop object permanence. At 6 months, babies are going to go back and they're going to look for the ball. By the way, the first words that babies learn are based on moving objects. Mama, daddy, ball, dog, right? The first words that babies learn are based on things that are movement that catch their attention. Okay, so object permanence, I'm going to look for the ball. Prior to 6 months, when we played peekaboo, I really thought you were gone. I closed my eyes. I thought you were absolutely gone. Mom doesn't exist anymore. After that, I know you exist. So that's why one of the reasons that, hold on, Milan. So that is one of the reasons that we know that separation individuation, that being afraid of strangers at that point happens between 5 and 7 months. Okay. Preoperational, that's between 2 and 7. Preoperational is that lovely 2 age. In that term, they learned egocentrism. It's all about me. Okay. So egocentrism really is normal. So when you have a kid who comes into your office and, he has a toy in his hand, he didn't have a toy when he came in, but his toy when he leaves, of course it's his, right? That's mine. That it's in my hand, isn't it? It's egocentric. A good daycare will have more than one of the same toy, right? Because at that age, we know it's mine. It's mine. Yes, I put it down and walked away, but it's still mine. Okay. Egocentrism is great from 2 to 7. If you're 27, it's called narcissist. Okay. All about me. So children begin to think symbolically and use pictures and words to represent objects. Not my kids, because my kids never hit this, but some kids, that big M in the sky, where you drive by and you get Happy Meals and a toy. Some kids, not my kids, but other people's kids could drive by and they go, oh my gosh, McDonald's. Not my kids, because I fed them healthy meals every day. Not. But okay, so that's symbolism, right? Your twins are 2 and they have double everything. They still fight for that one toy. That's right. That one's mine. Symbolism is, so the kids who have the easy bake oven and they have the toy vacuum, all the good stuff like mommy and daddy, that's what that means. Okay. So then at between 2 and 7 is when this stage develops. So between 2 and 7, they really should have, language-wise, we know that kids should have at least 200 words by the age of 2. Okay. So, and something else happens in that stage is called centrism. Let's see this one here. So centrism just means that I can only see the center of it. Centrism means that when my son that's here now, he's 30, when he was 7 or 8, I was like, when that is probably 5 or 6, we took him to the zoo. All the big elephants and the giraffe and everything else. He saw a little grasshopper on the fence, and that's all he could see. You can only concentrate on one little thing. That's called centration. That's an Erickson term as well. Okay. So concrete operational, that is when kids are very, I say concrete. They cannot get, they don't understand metaphors. Okay. You two are like 2 speeding trains about to crash. We're not on a train, Mom. What does that mean? You tell your kid, if you lay down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. Okay. At 8, 9, 10, you're thinking, I can't sleep with my doggie. Right? At 13 or 14, you're thinking, I better watch who I sleep with. Right? So they're very, very basic, very concrete. They take words for what they mean. I told my little kid, my daughter, when we were little, we were going to crazy. And she said, Mommy, can I go with you? One of those things that, I don't know if it's everywhere, but African-American parents used to say, so you tell your kid you're going to get a dog, or going to go see a man about a horse. That was a term that meant none of your business. But when you're little, you're thinking, Mom, where's the horse? You said you're going to talk to a man about a horse. Okay, so I don't understand that. Now, you might see a test question where a man has had a head injury or something that he has gone back to the concrete stage. Okay, so you might see that. So if he's very basic, can't understand metaphors, he has gone back to that concrete stage. And of course, my last one is going to be formal operational. That's when kids can use that abstract thinking. This is the last stage. So adults, they can use that abstract thinking. They can think hypothetically. They think about moral, philosophical, ethical issues. That happens in that stage. Let's go back to the picture. Okay, I always think of this one, my concrete stage, the 2 glasses that hold the same amount but look differently. That term is called conservation. I think about you have to conserve water. So that's how I remember that. Conservation is knowing that those 2 glasses hold the same amount, or they look differently. So if you had little kids and you ordered a pizza and you've had them cut it up into 15, 16 slices instead of 8. Well, that was just me. Okay. So anyway, have them cut little bitty slices. And the kid's like, oh my God, I had 3 pieces of pizza. It didn't even equal 1, but I'm telling you that. I'm just telling you, you got 3 pieces. That is that very concrete stage. Okay. So a couple of other terms, again, you want to know, make sure that we know schema. I'm in the chat box. So schema is Piaget's term for how you see the world, your perception of the world. That's called your schema, your schematic. Okay. Schema is a cohesive, repeatable action sentence possessing component actions that are tightly interconnected and governed by a general meaning. What the heck? All that means is that's how you learn to see the world. From your viewpoint, your schematic. I think that's the imprint it leaves on your brain. Okay. So how we learn things, according to Piaget, was based on assimilation, accommodation. And of course, the whole goal is to adapt. Okay, so accommodation is, assimilation. Assimilation is when a kid thinks that all dogs, everything with 4 legs are dogs. Right, they look as similar. So assimilation is when they look similar to me. The question says, the little boy says to his mom, wow, look at that woman. She's a whale. And the mom says, wait a minute. whales are animals and the woman is a human. That can't be true, right? So he assimilated first, and then she accommodated. She told him new information, so he had to make room in his brain to accommodate. Okay, in order to make sense of your new information, you have to actually adjust the information you already have. So the schema you have, the schema you have already, that you think that all animals, all with four legs are furry or be cats or dogs, or that, wow, I ate a drink, guys, sorry. Okay, look at that, I'll be right back. Nope. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so your schema, again, that is how you see life. That's your perception. And the first I'm going to then assimilate, and then I have to accommodate to make room for the new information. And the goal at the end is equilibration. So it'll equal out. He said all human thoughts seek order and uncomfortable with contradictions. So what we want it to be is the equilibrium occurs when a child's schema can deal with almost new information through assimilation. Okay, so those are Piaget terms that you'll see on the test. So assimilation, right? The new situation comes up, we're upset, that's disequilibrium, but we accommodate to make room for the new information. And all this is my schema or my schematic. Okay, Piaget terms. Kohlberg, of course, Kohlberg is my moral guy. So there's a reason that pre-operational sounds a lot like the other terms, pre-conventional, because they both work together. Kohlberg said that we are not born to be moral people. We are born we learn to be moral people. It wasn't innate. So that first one, so there are 3 levels and 6 stages, right? So my 3 levels include then my 1 and 2, right? So that's level 1. Those are my pre-conventional kids. They're younger than 6. Those kids are just doing it so they don't get in trouble, right? So they haven't learned any kind of, mature learning. They just know, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get caught. Okay. So level 2, that is my conventional level. Most of us are going to conform by the rules. We're just going to stay with the rules, follow the rules. At 3 o'clock in the morning, we're going to stop at the traffic light because those are the rules. Okay. And then my level 5 and 6, that's level 3, that's post-conventional. He said very few people stay there. So if we look at like post-conventional people, those are people like Jack Kevorkian, back in the day, he did the machine to help people kill themselves. He went to prison for like 20 years for that, where now it's legal in many states. So it's not that they're not aware of the law, they just believe their own morality, their own belief system is above the law. Okay, so that is Kohlberg. Kohlberg, so women cannot pass his test. So Carol Gilligan, she's one of our feminists. She worked with Kohlberg, and she's the one that came up. Her theory was that because women are raised differently, that we're not doing fighting the moral fight that men are. So Carol Gilligan was one of his proteges, and she looked at how women develop. Okay. Bowlby, he's attachment guy. Okay. Sometimes you'll see Bowlby with Ainsworth. Okay. And what you're looking for in those with Bowlby's and Ainsworth is that secure development. So when you're looking at those, and again, you'll see them on a question. It's not going to say according to so-and-so. You'll see it in a question. We're understanding what happens there, what happens where. So babies that securely attach, when mother drops them off at daycare, they're still going to cry. So all of you mothers that felt guilty, including me when you did that, right? They're going to cry. However, they're easily comforted by the caregiver. And when they come back, and when you come back, they're happy to see you. That's a secure attachment. You'll also see the insecure ambivalent. Okay, they're also upset when mother leaves. However, they're not comforted by mother's return. Like, oh yeah, mom's back, no big deal, right? So see the insecure and the insecure ambivalent, both of those are upset when mom leaves. My insecure avoidant, they're not upset when mom leaves, and mom comes back, they're hiding on the table. I want to go home with her. And then my insecure disorganized. So my insecure, again, baby's dropped off. They're like, okay, whatever. Right? And moms picks them up and they're still days. Like, who are you? Whatever. Okay. So those are my attachment theories when it comes to, most often you'll see Bowlby and Ainsworth. We'll see Margaret Mailer as well. Margaret Mailer talked about attachment as well. Margaret Mailer was a Freudian, okay? So what she looked at is she talked about our stages of attachment. She said if we don't attach with somebody between the ages of 24 and 36 months, that will end up being serial killers. Okay, not all of us, just some of us. She did say that borderline personality disorder, conduct disorder, as well as reactive attachment disorder can all be blamed for that lack of attachment. So then the normal autistic phase, right? That is the first 4 weeks of life, babies just lay there. That's called the normal autistic phase. Okay. She came up with this theory long before autism was labeled, just so you know. Okay. The second one is called the symbiotic stage, and that's babies realize that I need that other person to live. I don't know that we're separate yet, but I know that I need that person to survive. Okay, that's like, you know, the moss growing on the tree, right? Things like that. It knows it needs this thing to, it can't survive without it. So between 5 and 7 months, that's when babies realize they're separate. So that's called separation, individuation. And sometimes I've even seen the word differentiation, that I realize I'm a separate person than my mom. Okay, so that happens between 5 and 7 months. Then what we see is the rapprochement. That's at 18 months. Rapprochement is I'm going further away from mom. I'm going away, coming back, further away, coming back. Okay, and the goal, of course, between 24 and 36 months is knowing that I've got that object, that person is going to be there. It's an unconscious thought. Okay, so that person is a constant object unconsciously. Right? I can go anywhere. I can travel the world. I can do whatever I want because I've got a safe place to land. Okay, so between 24 and 36 months. Now, object constancy is Margaret Mailer belonging to that person. Object permanence, remember that's Piaget, knowing the boss are going to be there. Okay, so don't get those two confused. Yeah, Harry Harlow, I haven't seen it on the test. I've seen that a little bit in study guide. That's the monkey guy. That's when the monkey's attached to, they preferred the person with the monkey with the furry as opposed to the monkey that provided the food. They needed to eat when anything was wrong. They went to the furry monkey. What's something interesting about that study is the second generation of monkeys didn't know how to parent either, because they hadn't had parents. They couldn't pass that on. Conrad Lorenz is my imprinting guy. He's the ducks. If you remember the book, Are You My Mother? Dr. Seuss book, remember that book? That is based on his theory. So the book talks about, remember this book when you were little with your kids, right? the little birdie wakes up and he sees like a truck and he sees like all these different things and he's trying to figure out what he looks like. He says, "Are you my mother?" Because according to Conrad Lorenz, we don't know he didn't know you can't see a representation of ourself, right? We don't know what we look like if we don't know what our mother looks like. So that is Conrad Lorenz. So the baby bird could not fly. And he said, "I gotta go find my mother." And he asked all these different things. "Are you my mother?" Because he had no concept of what he was. So I know. You're thinking childhood books are not teaching you anything. Right? That's imprinting. Harry Harlow. I'm sorry, imprinting Conrad Lorenz. Daniel Levinson, he taught this. His book of
the season. Quick question. You said the Harlow is Conrad Lorenz is the duck guy.
Okay, try that again. Okay, I missed that. And if you're driving, that gives me a heart attack. So that scares me. I had a client like have an accident with their tutor with me, so I don't like when you're driving. Okay, so Levinson, Daniel Levinson, he looked at the seasons of the man's life. Most often, the question is going to be is he said that those transitions are normal. And if you had difficulty transitioning from teenagehood to adulthood, you'll have issues as you get older. Okay, he did work with men. He worked with men and women, but the question on the test is only really going to be about men. Okay, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of course, physiological, that's that bottom one. Physiological needs are safety, security, a place to live, right? So where my next meal's coming from, that always comes first. Okay, Giesel, he's a maturinist. He's looked as we matured. Okay, he advanced the maturinist theory, which holds the development of biological process proceeds in orderly, general manner and is independent of environment. So he said that it was the biological part, that nature part, not the nurture. Okay. William Perry, he's one of my favorites. I love William Perry because I teach college. And his category 1 is my favorite age when students come in, they're freshmen and they believe everything I say. Oh my gosh, Professor Pam, you are so smart. Oh, right. So that is dualism. I don't usually talk a lot about Giesel. No, he might be the wrong answer, but I haven't seen that to be the right answer on the test. Okay. Dualism is that freshman year when they think that the authorities, the professor knows everything. Oh my gosh, you are so smart, Dr. Pam. Right. Then the second year happens multiplicity. That's when you realize that, hey, wait a minute, I can think for myself. Okay. And then relativism, that is when you really begin to make your own decisions, realize that I'm not so smart. And then by the fourth year, that's of course you're invested in that. You are looking at commitment to learning things on your own, not necessarily looking at authorities for the figures, for the not looking at authority figures. Okay. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to give you some questions, guys. Okay. Questions in general, something you want to ask me about some of the things we went over?
I just had a question I was trying to get clarity on. So you said Harry Harlow is the monkey guy. Daniel Lorenz is the duck guy, right?
No. And Conrad Lorenz is the duck guy.
Okay.
Imprinting.
And then
Levinson is the man guy.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to look at these questions. Again, these are just about content. They're usually not that this clear on the test, but I like these questions because it helps you look at them not just based on the ages, but based on both the ages and the stages. Okay. So number 9, a child hits another child at school. The mother punishes him by taking away his iPhone. The child says, next time I won't hit because my iPhone will be taken away. What stage of moral development is the child in? So key in that question is moral development, right? So I know that's got to be Kohlberg, right? He's the moral person. Okay, so it can't be A because sensory motor belongs to Piaget. It can't be B because that belongs to Piaget. So now I've got C and D. Okay, he is not in the conventional stage. He is in the pre-conventional stage. He only has learned I won't hit him anymore because it's not good for me. Right? It's not good for me to hit him. I lose my iPhone. That's the problem. That's not good for me. Okay. Number 10, a mom brings, so the answer to that one is C, pre-conventional. Conventional are my rule followers, right? And then the post-conventional are people who are going to follow their own belief system, but they still know that what the laws are. Mom brings her child to session. The child says the grandmother just passed away. The little girl doesn't express any emotion about the death. The mother also says that she believes that the child has problems because she hasn't learned how to count numbers in order. What stage of development is she most likely in? Hint in the question, she can't count, right? Counting is a cognitive process. Piaget is my cognitive guy. Right? So I'm always looking for the question. It's a reading test. Okay. I know it's a cognitive guide because it says she hasn't learned to count. Okay. So I know it's Piaget. So then it's going to be either A, my formal operations, right? Or C, my pre-operational. Right. And I know my formal is the last one. And then I'm going to pick C, pre-operational. And I also am going to go back to the question. I know it's pre-operational because the mother says the grandmother just passed away. The girl doesn't express any emotion about the death. Probably because the girl doesn't understand. If mom used words like, oh, she's sleeping with the angels, right? Mom, she's sleeping, or she went away. She went to be with God, right? I don't understand that in the pre-operational stage. I'm literally thinking, grandma's flying with the angels. Okay, so that's my cognitive question. Those are how I read the questions, right? I'm looking for the terms that belong to those people. Look at this one. I didn't talk about Skinner or Pavlov today. But this is a behavior question. Remember, when I see behaviorists, they could care less about how you feel. They only care about changing the behaviors. 17, a man would like to toilet train his puppy to urinate outside. Every time the puppy urinates outside, the man tells him, good boy. The puppy responds positively to this training and urinates where he's supposed to. What theory is the man using? Pavlov, negative reinforcement, the law of effect, or aversion therapy. Remember, aversion therapy is anything yucky, painful, or gross. Right? So the antabuse, that's the patch that you wear, that you drink and you throw up, that's aversion therapy. Back in the day, we used to think people, we did CBT, would tell them to put a rubber band on their arm whenever they had intrusive thoughts, to flip the rubber band. That hurt. That's aversion therapy. Anything like that is aversion therapy. So the answer is C. Amy, tell me why.
Because it's the theory that if something is rewarded, it will continue. And I think it's from Thorndike.
It is, but it's not that it's rewarded. It's when it's rewarded immediately.
Okay.
That's the theory. So the law of effect, and that is Thorndike. He said, if I want to stop behavior or start behavior, the consequences or the rewards need to happen as close to the behavior as possible. Okay. So the theory, when kids are misbehaving, you say, wait till your dad gets home. It's kind of lost its punch, right? So it needs to be immediate. Think about in your classroom when you were in school back in the day. Isn't it so much easier when you got your feedback on your paper right away? Right? You could make changes, but right about the end of the semester, and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Okay. So Chelsea, positive conditioning, and I see where you're going. So positive conditioning means I'm rewarding the behavior, but I'm rewarding the behavior afterwards. So every time the puppy urinates outside, the man tells him, good boy. So that's the key there because it happens immediately. Okay. B is negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is, of course, I'm reinforcing the behavior by removing something the client didn't want. Okay. "23. A man complains to social worker about his wife. He says that the wife never nurtured their daughter, never held her as a baby, and hasn't bonded with her since she was first born. He reports that the daughter is now grown up and is extremely suspicious of others. What stage of development hasn't been resolved for her, according to Erickson?" Right, so I'm looking for Erickson stages. Okay. Trust versus mistrust. Exactly. You're thinking those are babies. That can't be right. Yeah, that's the answer, right? Because if I didn't develop that, okay. We look at that one. That's not one of our stages. That's an important question. Which group members are more likely to be a fit for group? Remember, homo means the same. If I'm in love with someone who is like me, that's homosexual. Heterosexual is different. Okay, so the group members that are most likely to be a good fit for group are going to be homogeneous, people that are like me. Okay. 32. A woman in her 40s is attending a work conference. Her supervisor and her colleagues share some opinions on a work project. The woman adopts the same opinions as they have. When asked about the project, she answers by imitating her boss and her colleagues' opinions. What stage of development is she likely to be stuck in? She's 40. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, she is stuck in identity versus role confusion. She's 40. She should have figured out who she was when she was 13. Right? Okay, I'm sure none of you guys do, but I've had some girlfriends that, they meet a new man, suddenly they're into a new sport or new hobby. Oh my God, I'm so into painting and horseback riding now, but you weren't 2 weeks ago. But this man, oh my gosh, I love it, right? Because we don't know who we are, so we're some involved in who he is. I'm sure none of you know any people like that, just my friends. 34. A woman discloses that she has a good relationship with her husband, has good friends and coworkers. What stage of development is she in, according to Piaget? Okay. So if she has good relationship with her husband, hint, hint, she is then in C, exactly. Intimacy versus isolation. She's got a good relationship with him. Okay. 35. A family comes to say, you can put in counselor, it makes you feel better, because their 6-year-old child is doing badly in school. The girl can't seem to keep up with her homework, is not making friends, and displays an overall state of anxiety over school. What stage of development is she displaying? Industry versus inferiority. So what stage of development? So I know it has to be one of my developmental theorists, right? That gives me a clue there. Okay, so industry versus inferiority, pre-conventional, identity versus role confusion, or initiative versus guilt. So my answer to that one is A. That is A. Very good, right? Because what I know, and remember that's that first, where you realize what you're good at in school. So if she's not good in school, that is definitely not her industry, not what she's competent at, right? So she's going to grow up feeling inferior if we don't help her find a place where she feels good. Make sense?
Yes.
"38. A woman tells the counselor that she has trouble making friends and she is extremely suspicious of others. She feels that she cannot rely on anyone and everyone is out to take advantage of her. What stage of social development is she likely to be in?" She's trouble making friends and extremely suspicious. Exactly. She doesn't trust anybody because Erickson says she didn't develop that when she was a kid. 39. A 7-year-old tells a social worker that she is not interested in the opposite sex and would just like to hang out and make friends. What stage of development is she most likely to be in? She's 7 and she doesn't like the opposite sex. That's right. That is C, because Freud would say that, hey, at this point, she's in the latency stage, right? Okay. 40. A boy is crying on the floor with his mother still in view. The mother is keeping a close eye on him and does not let him out of her room or out of the room or out of her sight. What stage of development is the child most likely to be in? So autonomy versus shame and doubt. Those are my 2-year-olds, right? I'm looking something about potty training or maybe feeling embarrassed, but nope, that's not autonomy versus shame and doubt. That is D. That's D. That's Margaret Mailer stage, realizing that mom is a separate person. Okay, so he's crawling around, but mom's not letting him leave the site, and they're not leaving my site, right? So between 5 and 7 months, babies realize they're a separate person than their mother. Okay, so we call it separation, individuation, or differentiation. $52. A client is seen by a clinic. A client is seen by a clinic for symptoms of depression. The social worker asks the client, "Charles, if all your problems were solved by tomorrow, what would your life look like?" What technique is a social worker using? Got it. The technique is the miracle question, and it belongs to B, solution-focused therapy, right? Solution-focused therapy is the only one that doesn't start with the medical model. The medical model is where we look at the problems first. Solution-focused therapy starts with the answer first. 54. A mother tells a child to be going away for a business trip for a couple of days. The child understands that the mother will be coming back. What stage of Mailer is the child exhibiting? Rapprochement, object constancy, object permanence, or the anal stage?
A, that's a Mailer reapproachment.
But she realizes that she's okay with mom coming back. So she's past that. The next stage would be B, object constancy, right? I know that mother can go on a business trip and she'll be back. I know I've got that internal, right? That unconscious knowing that it's going to be okay because she's going to come back. Yes. And that happens at object constancy stage. Okay. So object permanence belongs to Piaget. That's when you know that the ball is still there. They was going to look for the ball. Object permanence. Object constancy belongs to Margaret Mailer, knowing that my mother is still going to be there. Okay. Makes sense?
Yes, it does.
So 56, an infant was just born. He's in his own shell and does not recognize the mother as a separate being. What stage of development is the infant likely to be in according to object relations theory? Not B. They're just born. That first 4 weeks of life is exactly the autistic stage. Okay, so that first 4 weeks of life, first month of life, to the autism stage. Again, she wrote this. She named this before autism was something we had talked about.
Gotcha.
Okay, but when babies just kind of lay there, right?
Understood.
Try 60. A clinical worker is pointing out the incongruency between a client's actions and thinking. What technique is he using? Okay. So whenever things are incongruent, when they don't match up, that's when I can confront. Most often confrontation is going to be the right answer when it's a drug and alcohol question. But anytime I see two different behaviors, right? I do know that that's going to be one of those terms. Okay, so it's okay to confront. Clarification is when I don't understand. Okay, so I need to clarify. It's okay to clarify in the middle of the conversation because I don't want to have a whole conversation thinking about this is what they mean something else. Okay, 61. Two colleagues get into a verbal altercation. One of the colleagues starts becoming very angry and yelling. He says to the other worker, "You're an angry person." What defense mechanism is he using? The answer for 60 was B, confrontation. 60 was B. Okay. 61 is B. 61 is C. That's projection. Projection. Okay. So you're a very angry person, right? I am blaming my stuff onto you. I'm angry, so I'm putting my stuff onto you. Displacement is the same feeling that it's in the wrong place. 62, a woman and a child are seen in a social service agency. The child puts an ice cube in his mouth and winces. He has just learned, hint, hint, learned the ice cube is cold. What such a development is he operating from?
Would it be B?
That is, what's wrong with, why can't it be D? Because he learned, right? That's Piaget. That's sensory motor. You're absolutely right. SPCF, learned cognitive. So you're absolutely right. That's what sensory motor. Okay. Does that make sense of how to read those questions when I tell you it's a reading test? Okay.
Yes.
Go back. It's just a reading test. It's giving you the answers. I swear they're not these evil people out to get you. They're not. Okay. They're not. So if you can just learn how to read and not think, you'll do fine on the test. Okay. I need you to leave your brain in the car. Just read when you take the test. Okay. I do have to wrap you up, guys. So, but honestly, it is a reading test. The answers are in the stem. We're going back, and I'm always thinking, how do I know? Okay. And don't make it fit. Either it's going to be fit or not, right? So, and this we don't do this in my agency or in my office. We do this. The test doesn't care, right? You get the same test everybody else gets. I don't care what your office learns. And my boss said that we can take anything below $25. That's nice and all, but the code of ethics doesn't say that. Okay, so make sure you know what the code of ethics says, not what your boss said. Okay, I can let you go, guys. Any other questions?
Can you send the PowerPoint that you were using in the beginning?
I am going. So I put it in the chat box that I use the that's the NCE secrets. That's why I was using the first one. And this book, this one I'll give you also. I will tell you. Okay, if you do not know the answer, do not call me freaking out because it's a social work book, and not everything belongs to you. Okay, I use the books across platform, but if it talks about something you've never ever seen before, it probably isn't meant for you. Okay. Just saying. But I like you to see information written in different ways. right? Because if you're only seeing written in the same way, if you're only studying the NCE book or only studying the purple book, when you get to the test, they ask it slightly differently, you won't know what the answer is. So the goal is to learn it across the platform. So I know Freud is Freud is Freud, no matter how you ask me. Okay. Other questions? Okay. So I will have a group next week. I'll be here. We'll have a group the 2 weeks after. Somebody else will be here for me. Okay. I am leaving the 18th. So some of you have said I will tutor you when I'm gone. We'll get with me. I'll be going to the Greek Isles. Any other questions, guys? So when I hang up, there'll be a recording of this boot camp. I'm gonna hang up right now. Oh, stop recording. I'm not gonna hang up. Okay.